Okay. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Today we will start module number 5, and I think this the module which it will cover all of the modules which we discussed before. Before we discussed the modules for the data. For architecture first and types of the clouds, services, then data security, infrastructure security, then application security. Now we will start with the 5th module or 5th domain from CCSP, which is speaking about the operations. Operations, you will find that it will repeat all what did we explain before. Yani in some situation, I have some of my colleagues, they are telling me why we are repeating ourselves. Yani why we are repeating ourselves. We are not repeating ourselves, gentlemen. You will find or you will discover that we are not repeating ourselves. What it's going that the application or the previous explanations, it was discussing the design, but in this one, it will, or this module, I mean, it will speak about the operation, how to run it, not on design. I will not ask you about design VPN, but in the operation, I will ask you about the design, or I mean the how to configure it, how to operate it, how to monitor it. When it will be related for all the components which we discussed before, but from the point of view of the operations, when we are not repeating ourselves, we are looking from a different angle. We are looking from a different angle. Operations, it is very easy. Operations, it's very easy. But unfortunately, operations require some experience. Operations requires some experience, and we will try, I will try to cover the required experience to tell you, take care of this, we are doing this in this way or that way, and so on, then to be familiar with the these operations and how you can configure all these things in the data centers or in the field, live in the field. Let's start by defining or to reviewing. I will not give any new definitions today. Today and till end of this module, I will not explain anything new. We will explain the physical and logical infrastructure. What is the physical and logical infrastructure? Can you tell me? What is the difference between both of them?
Physical means the data center, I mean to say the location, the infrastructure, which is all actually required. The building.
Okay.
Logical refers to the compute, storage, networks, routers.
Any other feedback? I can see that we have 7 participants in the course. If you will remove 3 of them for myself, then we are 4. We have only Prem, it's with us in the course. What about the others? Do you want me to ask by name?
I know physical, which is what Prem said. Logical, I don't remember. But I think it's what Prem said. So if I say physical, it will be only physical and logical. I think this is the one we need the answer for it.
Physical, this means that it is something tangible. Data center, hosts, routers, switches, and so on, when we are the devices. But when we are saying logical infrastructure, this it will be in a form of virtualization. Because if I have one host, which is a physical server, and it is distributed into 10 VMs, then this means that we are 10 logical servers and one physical host. And this is the difference between both of them. Then physical, it is something tangible. And this is considered the data center, actual data center. And the physical, the logical, this it will be considered the components coming to virtualization and so on. Okay. When we are speaking about the operation, we are thinking about the two components, the physical and the logical. I want to configure the physical and I want to configure the logical. Then we have something related to hardware specific security requirements. What are these things? These are security requirements required for specific hardware. You have some specific hardware components. You have to provide the security settings for it. Like what? Number one, BIOS settings. What is BIOS? Do you know what is the BIOS? What is the BIOS?
It's a basic input-output system, which exactly is the basic operating system, or basic input-output operating system, or basic input-output. It's a basic input when you buy a new laptop or something. You will find it, you know, the basic thing in your laptop.
Okay, then it is not laptop only. It can be any hardware device. Any hardware device, gentlemen, it is a dummy. It is a dummy. Hardware, it's a dummy. Processor, it's a dummy. RAM, it's a dummy. Storage, it's a dummy. If you don't have the proper software which it can be run it, then it's dummy. By the end of the day, whatever any hardware device you will buy it, it must have a BIOS. What is a BIOS? It's a basic input-output system, or a basic very high level operating system, which it will be able to check the hardware, check the configuration, make the necessary configuration, and make the box up and running, then to be ready to accept any connectivity from a user. Okay, then the BIOS settings here, this is very important. Why? It is very, very important, gentlemen. Why? Because this BIOS settings, it is govern the hardware configuration and the security. It is make a governance for hardware configuration and the security. Just imagine if I have a firewall, and this firewall, it has a very basic BIOS, which it will start up, it has a software which it will start up the machine and so on. Then if there is any hacker, he was able to access this BIOS, and he was able to make some changes where it will collect the data and send to the hacker and so on. Then it will be a crisis for me. Then this means that this BIOS, it is very important. You have to make sure that this BIOS, it is secure. BIOS, you will not be able to access BIOS except if you have a physical access for the hardware. If you have a physical access to the hardware, and usually it will be accessed through something called console cable. Did you hear about this before? Console cable. What is a console cable? Console cable is a piece of cable, and it has a serial interface, and on the device also it has a serial interface, and the other side, it will be connected to your network, and it will open something like command line, and it has some commands where you can define a username and password, when you can log in, or you can define also as Cisco switches, for example. You can log in through username and password. When you type enable, you will open the administrative CLI, and you start to make your configuration. Then take in your mind, understand these things, even if you don't have the practical experience, but memorize it. The BIOS settings, it is physical. You will not be able to access it remotely. You will not be able to access it remotely. And usually the BIOS, use the BIOS when we are buying the device first time, when we want to log into the device and configure a specific IP address on the device and make some basic configuration, then we will be able to log in through the browser or whatever. You have to prevent access to the BIOS. You have to prevent the access to the BIOS. Don't allow anyone to access the BIOS. You have to make it very restricted. This, it can be done through the PAM. Remember when we mentioned that if you have access to a privileged access user, you have the PAM. This PAM, it is very critical, which it will help the users to access the privileged accounts with one-time password. Then if they have one-time password, then we will be able to log in. If they don't have it, then we will not be able to log in, and so on. Of course, BIOS here, you have to understand or work very closely with the vendor to understand how they can protect the BIOS. There are some companies, they will tell you we can protect this by using special commands, by disable it, by enable protection, to enable BAM, whatever. Then you have to understand from the manufacturer, how can we protect these BIOS devices. BIOS devices, it is recommended also to have multiple defense in depth or security layers of protection, to have multiple security layers of protection, because this device is very important. Hackers, they are spending years, if they are APTs, to gain access to your servers. But just imagine if he is able to access the data center, then he will be able to connect to the BIOS. Some of the users are saying, come on, how can I access a BIOS and so on? This is not the easy. No, gentlemen, it is very easy. It is very easy. Yani, I know that what I am saying now, this it will waste our time, but this to understand the importance. In some situations, gentlemen, if I am a hacker and I know the importance of this data center, then I will come and I will act as I am a labor from cleaning labor or DHL labor or whatever, and I have the suit of the DHL, and I'll come because I know that you are preparing some boxes in the data center and you want me to collect that and get outside. Then I can go inside. Just if I am able to go inside and you don't have the proper security controls where monitoring and someone who will be with me all the time and all these things, then if he is able to connect the console cable to this BIOS, he can collect the device configuration. He can planet any software which is able to collect data and so on. Okay, this is the importance of the BIOS settings. We have
Mr. Khan, I have a question, please. Sorry.
okay.
Okay, we earlier in the session you said that CCSP is addressed both from cloud service provider and, for example, cloud service customer, right?
Right.
In here, when you mention BIOS and it's physically and you have to be there and console cable, we are talking from the cloud service provider here, right?
Of course, yes.
Okay,
Customer,
so
there is no way to reach to the data center.
okay, so now if I'm a cloud security professional and I'm working in Oracle on A or Microsoft or any other cloud service provider, I have to say that we have to implement that policy, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
we are talking from that perspective.
Yes. Then this means that when you will evaluate your security or if you want to provide the security program, you have to take in consideration all these things.
Okay, so here I just want to know if is this point only, or the whole chapter will talk about from the cloud security
No. Mix and match.
Mix and okay.
Mix and match. When you are studying, you will be a little bit confused. Why you are telling me this? I don't know. Do I have an access for hardware in the cloud? Yes, you don't have, but you are a cloud service you are a cloud security professional. Cloud security professional, he may working in a cloud service provider.
So, sir, so my question is, suppose let us say I'm just an extension to what Mahmood asked. If I'm a CCSP and I'm working from the cloud customer's perspective, and I'm having my own data center. It's a private cloud. At that time, I need to take care of all the to say security aspects with respect to the BIOS. Am I right? Because it's my own data center.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Of course. Okay. There is another module. It is called hardware security module.
Oh, sorry, sir. One question on the BIOS security. So, as you said that it is actually linked to a console, so which means there has to be some physical person who will go in disguise, or probably showing a false identity at the security checkpoint, and then enter into the data center, and then only he can go and corrupt the BIOS. Otherwise, I mean to say, normal stances, if all the security measures are in place, it is very difficult to attack or corrupt the BIOS. Am I right?
I give you an example. When I told you it may be an external hacker, he act as one of the labor or a DHL man or whatever. Anyone he will have an access to a data center, legal or illegal, whatever.
Okay.
And this he can represent a risk or threat for the BIOS settings.
Okay.
The other module, the hardware security module, HSM. What is HSM? HSM, this is a very important concept, gentlemen, in the security, hardware security module. This, it can be a plug-in card. It can be a plug-in card, which you can install it in a PC or in a server, mainly in a server. Or it can be physical external device. It can be a device. What is the importance of the HSM? HSM, gentlemen, it will perform the encryption and the decryption for digital signatures, authentications, and all the service related to cryptography, mainly also to save or store the private keys. Then this means that if I have a server and you have cryptography actions, then you have HSM. What is the HSM? As we mentioned, it can be a plug-in card. When I install the plug-in card in the host or in the server itself, then it will be responsible for encryption, decryption. Why we need this? Because this means that it will offload the server's memory and the processor. It will be the encryption, decryption. It will be done on this interface, and it will be very fast because it has maybe SSD hard disk. It may have fast RAM and so on. Then whatever any activity related to cryptography, it will be handled by the HSM. Besides, it has a secure storage where it cannot be compromised. Even if you will try to compromise it, it will be blocked or it will be destroy itself. Then you will not be able to reach to each data. And of course, in this case, we are speaking about the private keys, this which we call it hardware security module. It can be in form of a card or can be a device. When you can have a network device external, it's connected to the network through a network cable, and it can save the keys, private keys for all the other users, or it may be one server and it has a private key for this server. It depends upon the implementation. The third component, it is called trusted platform module. Some situation, gentlemen, the people who are working operations, usually we are saying TPM, HSM, we don't know, no one he will say hardware security module. We are saying HSM, we are saying TPM. When you will ask them about what is trusted platform module, what is trusted platform? I did not hear about TPM. TPM, yeah, okay. When this it happens sometimes. What is the TPM? The TPM, gentlemen, this is a dedicated microcontroller on computing system. You know what is a microcontroller? Microcontroller, it is a small chip, and you call it in some situation computer in a chip. It has RAM, it has processor, it has storage. Very small, board. It has memory and it has a processor and it has a chip. And usually, if you want to do some specific functions, as in cars, in the cars now, 99 of the new cars now, it is digitalized. When this digitalization, how it will be processed, all the feature will be processed on a microcontroller. It will be a microcontroller. Sometimes we are calling it microcomputer, but of course it's not a microcomputer, it's a microcontroller. And this it will do the cryptographic operations on the keys. It will again what we can say, it can do protection for the keys of the cryptography. Of course, it is a complicated issue because we have many features by generating random keys, generate cryptographic keys, how you are able to create public and private for a server. When if you have a TPM, then it will be responsible for create the private and public key for you. It will be responsible for create public and private key, because this is a complicated issue to create the public and private key for you. In some situation, as in Windows 11, we have the TPM version 2. It is software version 2. And it is used to increase the protection against ransom attacks. Just this for your information. I don't know if it will be useful or not, but I am trying to give you some tricks which it can be questions in the exams. The TPM, the Trusted Platform module, it is an important module, and it can protect all your information for your servers, especially for your servers which is using cryptography. Okay. We have also, you remember when we said that we have the management tools. Management tools for virtualization environment. This, of course, it will be a very important component which you have to install it, and you have to make sure that these components are secure for the management tools of the virtualization. Okay. Now we spoke about the hardware-related components. You remember when we mentioned here, we will speak about hardware-specific security requirements for hardware. Now we will speak about something else. What is it? About the virtual hardware specific security requirements. This is related to virtualization. When now we are moving into logical. We are moving from the physical into logical, because when we were speaking about BIOS, about TPM, about HSM, all these components are what? Physical. But now we start to speak about virtualization and what are the security requirements for a specific application, specific components in virtualization. Okay. First of all, when we are speaking about virtualization, gentlemen, we have to be very, very careful. When I have a host, I have supervisor, I have operating system, then I have the VMs. I will not be able to secure VMs until the host it is secure. Then this it will be very important. This is why we are speaking about physical and virtual and logical and all this stuff. Then you have to make or to be very aware about the requirements of the underlying host system. You have to understand what are the limitations. For example, I am not saying this is a real example, but I am saying, for example, if the vendor of the host, he is telling you, don't increase more than 15 VM on a host, then if you make it 16, then this means that you will be in trouble, because the host, it will not be able to handle it. You will be in trouble. Okay. Then you have to make sure that you are providing the security controls, security configuration required for the underlying host. Also, you have to understand how you can allocate and manage the host resources to the virtual machine. What do you mean? What I mean, okay, let me say that I have one host here. This host, it has, for example, 100 terabyte storage. It has 128 GB RAM. 128, this it will be very small. In some situation, one server, it will be 128. 512 GB RAM. We have 10 processors. And I have here the virtual machines. How I will assign the resources for each one. This it will be done, of course, through the supervisor and through the supervisor, which is the virtualization software. But I have to understand how can I properly allocate it. In some situation, it will make something called a resource constraint. What is resource constraint? This expression, by the way, it's not in the CCSP. This is something related to the cloud. Resource constraint that two VMs, we are trying to get the same source at the same time. Then, of course, this means that one of them, it will fail. It will not be able to get it. Why? Because the other one is already leaked. We have something called share. If you remember when we explained that you have reservations, you have share, you have limits, and all this stuff. We are trying to solve all these problems like that. But we have to understand how we will be able to provide this allocation method of CPU or whatever, any resources from the host into the VMs. Also, we have to take care about a very, very, very important issue. What is it? Default credentials. This default credential, gentlemen, let me ask you a question. If you are trying to access the administrator password of any device, what is the username which you will try first?
Admin.
Admin. What else?
Super admin.
Sorry?
Super admin.
Super admin, it's not used. Usually admin and administrator. Why? Because these two are the default username of administrators. And this is the reason, gentlemen, why Windows or Microsoft, they understand that this is considered as a risk. Then what they are doing right now, they don't have admin, but what they have, they will ask you to mention the name yourself. Then you can name it whatever you want. It's up to you, but it is not admin. It is not admin anymore. But in some situation, you will find the account guest. By default, it may be disabled. But disabled does not mean that no one he will not be able to use it. It can be used. Then this means that I have to delete it. Then you have to check all the default credentials supplied by the vendors. And this default credentials, it is not only on servers, operating systems, applications, it is on any device. Just to name it, just give me one name of any device which does not have administrator password. Even the modem which you are using in your home for ADSL connection or fiber connection, internet fiber connection, it has the admin username and password. And it will be, you will be surprised when you will know that the default username admin, password is admin as well. Believe it or not. Username admin, password admin. Then this it will be a problem, because if anyone has come near to your home and he was able to snap the password or whatever, or even get your password, or even I can make it as a joke with you. Brem, he is my friend. I want to make a joke with Brem. When I logged on, it is very easy to know what is the default gateway of your machine. Then this means that this is the router. I will log in through a browser, username admin, password admin, and I will change the password. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Then this was again one of the main problems which you have to eliminate it. Another thing, whatever any unnecessary interfaces for applications, APIs, it should be disabled immediately. And I want to add services. If you are on the Windows and you will say Windows, it has tens of services. Then you will say, okay, I am not enabled these services, then I don't have any problem. No, gentlemen. Even if it's not enabled, even if it's disabled, but this does not mean that the hackers will not be able to use it. We can enable it and use it, and this it will be a crisis, especially if it's something like remote monitoring and all this stuff. Then please, if you don't need the service, delete it. Delete it. Don't say that I disable it. No, delete it. This is the best countermeasure or safeguard to protect against any hackers who are trying to play with these settings. Okay. We will have in a concept. It's called, يعني, frankly speaking, I will explain it to you because I am feeling this is it can be a question in the exam, although I don't believe that it's important. But again, as I am telling you, يعني, due to my experience when I am reading the books, I say this can be a question, matter of question, because you will feel that we throw it in the middle of a paragraph without any need. There is something called traditional network model and another thing called convergent network model. Traditional network model, it has physical switches plus virtual switches. Virtual network, يعني, not virtual switch, virtual networks. And what do you mean by virtual network, gentlemen? This is a little bit confusing. Virtual network, it will be done on the hypervisor, on the host. Host, do you want to tell me that on the host I will have a virtual network? Yes, you will have a virtual network. Believe it or not, you will have a virtual switch. On the host, if I have one host like that, again, here, supervisor, here, operating systems. This VM, it may be in a different subnet mask. Each one of them has different IP address. For example, some situation, it may have different IP address. For example, I am a company and I said, please, Mr. Cloud Service Provider, I want to have two zones, zone 1 and zone 2. This it will be 1 to 1 to 1 to 0, and this 2 to 2 to 2 to 0 /24/24. And I want another VM. This VM, I will have a firewall image on it. Then whatever any traffic, it will move from this zone to this zone, it will go through the firewall or vice versa. It should again pass the firewall. Then how it will be done? This is a network. Then this means that you have a virtual switch on the firewall, the host. You have a virtual switch. Here there is a virtual switch, which represented as a virtual, they are calling the network, virtual network. This virtual switch, it has the same types of attacks as a physical switch. When you work with physical switch, it's a device in a layer 2, and we have the same, exactly the same as physical switches, threads, and plus another threads related to the virtualization. Okay. Then you have the concept of, and this, by the way, gentlemen, I'm quite sure that all of you know this model. This model, you will have it in your data center. You have your network, you have physical switches, which connects the servers, and at the same time, you have some virtualization devices. You are using Hyper-V, you are using VMware, and all these devices are connected together, and we have physical servers with the same time virtual servers. Okay, that's fine. Convergent network model, it will be a different concept. It combines storage and data, or let's say data network with IP network. The traffic of storage with the data. Traffic of storage with the data in one virtualized design. It's all of it running virtualization. All of it run in a virtualization model. All of it run in a virtualization model. We don't have a physical situation as this. In the convergent, all of them, we are virtualized. And they have all the traffic for storage and data IP traffic on the same network. Okay? Why we are explaining this concept, gentlemen? We are explaining this concept because we, or the CCSP developers, we want to tell you. With the traditional networks, I can use the normal devices, security devices, which I know it very well. And I'm quite sure that all of you know it. Maybe ASA firewall, maybe Palo Alto, maybe IPS from Cisco, maybe just name it. Just name it. Fortinet, which is developed the FortiGate firewall, just name it. But when we speak about the virtualization, here the scenario, it will be a little bit different. Why? Because what we will use, if I have a scenario like this one, which we explain it here, how can I install a firewall here? How can I install a firewall? Can you imagine, gentlemen? It is by the end of the day, what can I see? One server. You have multiple zones in this server. How can I manage it? How can I install a firewall in between? How can I get one device? Where can I connect the cables? Then what is the solution here? If I want to follow the convergent model, in the convergent model, we said, okay, that's fine. It will be exactly the same, but instead of a physical, because what is the physical hardware of a firewall? By the end of the day, it's a PC. Really, it's a PC. It has hardened operating system, maybe Linux or Unix, and we have the software installed on it of the firewall. Then I will change this hardening operating system and the firewall software, and I will install it in a VM as an image. That's it. Nothing less, nothing more. Then now, whatever any controls you have in your organization as a firewall, as IPS, as IDS, and so on, just discuss with your vendor, please, do you provide this in a hardware? Yes, or sorry, I mean as an image. Yes, we provide it. Thank you very much. I will have it as an image because I will install this in a cloud-based infrastructure. Okay. This is the main difference between the traditional network and conventional network. Then we will speak about the network devices. Now we will speak about network devices. And in the network devices, we will discuss it in two different concepts, virtual and physical. The physical network, you know it very well. I don't think that you need anything to be explained here. I have one switch. It has interfaces. I have PCs or servers. It is connected with a single cable into the machine. That's it. Then if there is any problem with one of the cables, what will happen? It will be disconnected itself, but it will not affect on the other. The other, it will be up and running. If the cable has a problem, the machine, it will be disconnected, but the others, they will be up and running, and it will not affect the operation at all for the other components. When we are speaking about virtual networks, the scenario here, it's different. Why? Because as we mentioned, gentlemen, now we are speaking about a host, and this host we have a virtual switch on it. This virtual switch, it will take a part of VRAM and consider it as a switch. I don't have cables. Here, gentlemen, I don't have a cables. I will not say that, hey, Mr. VM, you will be connected here with the cable and this is not the scenario. I don't have a cables, but this logically, it acts as it is connected. It acts as it is connected when I don't have a cable. But what will happen if this switch is corrupted, or if it's one of the board it's corrupted? Then this means that the whole switch, it will be corrupted. Then if we have any problem on the one of these VMs, yani for example, one of the VM, it is doing some traffic which is abnormal, and it make a load over on the virtual switch, then this means that it can affect the switch and it can make a failure for the whole host. Why? Because the switch, which is responsible for moving the data, it is affected. And by the way, gentlemen, when you will have a host and you have a physical interface, you have a 10G interface, Ethernet, for example, and it will be connected to a physical switch outside, like that. By the way, you will have the traffic, it will be exchanged between these two, between the virtual switch and this physical switch. Between the physical switch and virtual switch. It's virtualization. By the end of the day, it's a virtualization. It seems that it's a virtual switch, although it's not a virtual switch, but it seems that it's a virtual switch, and I have routing tables and all of this. It will be handled by the virtual switches. Okay? The other important component in the data center, it is the servers. Of course, the servers, it is very important. Again, servers does not mean anything as a device, but we have to secure the server and the operating system. When you have, first of all, operating system, then you have to hardening the operating system. The operating system, it is very important to check the recommendations from the manufacturer. If Microsoft telling you, you have to load fixes, you have to load batches, you have to run this, you have to delete this, you have to do it, then you have to do it. Otherwise, you will be in a trouble. You will be, you have risks. Also, you have to check what are the requirements from the regulatory authorities and your organization policies. For example, organization policy saying whatever any traffic exchange between servers must be secure. Then I will not be able to use HTTP traffic. I must use HTTPS. Then this means that I have to check what is the regulation. For example, NCA, they are saying that all the data exchanged inside the organization on the network must be encrypted. This is one of the recommendations now, or the requirements, I mean. It is very important to understand the data classification on the server. Data classification, it is a very important factor. Why it is an important factor? Because if I have a server which it has some information which is not important, then I don't need to provide any security controls for it, or very basic security controls. It will do the exercise. It can be act as a jump server to reach to other servers. But if I have a patent, it is stored on this server, then it is very important, and I have to provide the requirements, the security controls, and so on. Also, you have to remove. Do you hear what I am saying? Remove, not disable. Remove, and this way you may be asked by in indirect way. remove and disable. Remove the non-essential services, non-essential software packages, non-essentials protocols, non-essentials accounts, non-essential utilities. All these gentlemen, by adding even unused protocols, configurations, software packages, utilities, whatever, you are increasing the risk service. You are increasing the risk service. And your server, it will not be secure. You will be in substitution, you may be in real trouble. Okay? This is very important to disable and remove. Disable and remove. Yes, Brim.
So, sir, which one, I may say, you said now disable and remove. So, if I disable alone, then I need not remove it, right? By disabling itself is it means like this one, because by removing might probably have more overheads and it might create some issues.
No, no. For example, if you are deleting the remote desktop, what is the issue you have? You are not able to access it remotely. This is a security requirement. If you are deleting the what is called net flow, for example, net flow, or the SNMP traffic, SNMP agent. SNMP, this is a backdoor, very dangerous backdoor. Because it's in SNMP, we will have two community. One, it's called the private, the second, it's called the public. And the password, it will be the same. Then, if you disabled, I can, as a hacker, you know, in the Windows, how you can start a service? Through a net start service name. You can start the service. Thank you very much. I started the service and I start to utilize it. And you don't do anything in the background if you are not monitoring the logs properly. When disable it, it will not affect. I'm not telling you delete the services which you use it. I am saying if you disable the service, then this means that you are not using it, then delete it. What will happen if I need it later? Tomorrow, I bought a new software which is using SNMP and I want to collect the data through SNMP and send it to SIM. Okay, that's fine. Install it. Install it. It's very easy. I don't have any problem. Delete it now, install it tomorrow. It is not, it may ask you for a CD or it may communicate with the internet and download it, whatever the method how you are doing. Okay. Also, you have to, all these things which we are mentioned now, the countermeasures and safeguards for the servers. You have to allow only secure protocols to communicate with the servers. Don't allow any clear text protocol. Don't allow HTTP. Don't allow TFTP. Don't allow FTP. Allow SFTP, allow HTTPS, allow secure protocols. Why? Because you don't want anyone to capture data and he will be able to read it. He will be able to read it. Okay? Also, don't never ever give an administrative or privileged access to the server directly from outside the organization. Don't give any administration or privileged access to the server from outside. But I want to manage my device remotely. Okay, that's fine. Use a VPN client, IPsec. Initiate IPsec and start to manage it. Because when you are connected by IPsec client, then this acts as an internal network. Then you will access the server by its private IP address, not public IP address. Okay, this is very important. Don't allow this at all. Yeah, for example, you will tell me, wait, what you are saying? What you are saying here, it is nonsense. You don't want me to allow administrative password or access for the devices. I have clients My clients, my consumer, cloud service consumers, they want administrative access for their devices inside my network. I tell you, okay, that's fine. I don't have any problem. Use IPsec or use HTTPS, because he will not be able to log in without a secure protocol. If I use IPsec, class, it's over. It's secure now. Okay. Also, vulnerability assessment and patching, patch management. Secure vulnerability assessment or vulnerability scanning and patch management. This is very important. Very important. You have to continuously monitor patches. We will speak about patches in more details, but I don't think today. It may be next week, inshallah. But this is very important. You have to monitor the patches. When you install the patches, it must have a log. You must know that is it already installed or not, and if it's installed consistently on all the devices or not, and so on. We will understand the best practices later. Next week we will explain this in more details. Okay. Then this is very important countermeasures. In the exam, make sure that you remember the concept of applying the mitigation factors where patching cannot be deployed immediately. What do you mean? Okay, this is good. And I want you to concentrate. And by the way, this it will be the last thing I will say it before our break. Gentlemen, all of us understand very well that we are in a production and we are not able to cease business. And I will not have the courage to go to my CEO and I tell him I will stop all the services to update a patch with Microsoft. We are saying it's a critical and high classified. Sorry, in what I will say now, he will say a bad word and go to hell. It's so simple like that. They don't understand what you are saying, critical or not critical and whatever. They understand business. If you will stop the server, I will lose so and so. Like, what can I do? Now, Microsoft, we are saying, take care. We found a vulnerability in our system, and this it can be classified as critical, and it can be utilized by hackers. And if I will not be able to install it right now, my server, it will be compromised. It can be compromised. What we can do? In CCSP, we are telling you, in this case, if you are not able to update the patch or load the patch, then try to find another mitigating factor. You remember when we say compensating controls and so on, here we are saying mitigating factor. What is this mitigating factor? We are saying disable the service temporarily or don't allow access to these services at all. It will affect the business. Okay, that's fine. I can understand this. Then instead of shut down the whole business for half an hour or whatever to load the patch, I will not do this. I will try to stop this service only. When I know that we, Microsoft, we announced that RDB, it is not secure, remote desktop, it's secure, and no one is using it anymore now. Eliminate it, stop it. Stop this service until you upload the patches. Fine. What will happen? What you will do, gentlemen, if your manager, he said, no, I'm not accepting this. This, it will affect our business. What will be your answer? I will hear for your answer one by one when we come back from the break. I will repeat the question again to avoid any misunderstanding. I am asking, now the CCSP, they are people who develop the codes. They are telling you if you are not able to load the patch, no problem. Then terminate or disable the service. If I disable the service, I will face problem with the business. The business, they said, no, you are not allowed to do this. Don't stop the RDB, because we have some administrators remotely from remote locations. We are logging, and if you did this exercise, you will affect the business. What will be your answer? And I will hear the answer from all of you when we will come back. Any questions before going for the break? Okay, fine. Gentlemen, I'm sorry, just today I need 20 minutes because I did not pray. Then 20 minutes, and I will see you after that. Thank you. Okay, now we will speak about the storage. Usually, storage, gentlemen, in the cloud service provider or in big customers, it will work in something called iSCSI or SAN. This SAN, it is a dedicated network for the storage. Dedicated network for the storage. How it's connected? You have servers here, and you have your LAN, your network. It is connected through Ethernet port, 10, 100 gig, 10G, whatever the bandwidth. And you will have another network. This is called the iSCSI network. And this is total different interfaces from the Ethernet. In some situation, it can be internet. It can be internet. With the SAN, it can be Ethernet interface, but it will be different, and it will be connected to another interface here. When the server, it has two interfaces, one for the network and one for the storage. All the traffic of the data from the storage, it will be handled on this area, and whatever any traffic on the network will be handled on this area. This is the definition of the LAN and the storage and the communication. Storage is a very important component. It's a very important component because the storage, it contains all our data. Storage contains all our data. The protocol which is used over this network, it's called iSCSI. iSCSI, it is a good protocol. It is a strong protocol. It will support the authentication as Kerberos, which is used in Windows operating system for secure communication, confidentiality with the networks, and so on. When this is considered as a secure protocol. There is one point here, gentlemen, which I want you to know it, and it is very important. You have to remember that the iSCSI protocol, it must be protected with any other methodology rather than the protocol itself. What do you mean? iSCSI itself, it is clear text. And it does not have any security controls as a protocol. When this protocol is designed, we don't have any security controls. Why? Because when they developed this protocol, we were thinking that we will have the application inside our network, no internet, and all this stuff. But now, no, we have internet, we have connectivity from outside, we have a lot of things. Then we are saying, iSCSI, it's a clear text, it's not supporting any security control. Then what we have to do? We have to use any authentication. It supports the authentication, and we have to use the IPsec, for example, to enable IPsec on this network to enable the protection, of the data exchange, because the iSCSI protocol itself, it is not providing the security control. Then we have to provide authentication method, where if any server it want to communicate with the storage, it should be authenticated. Is the server allowed to access it or not authenticated? It should be authenticated, and make sure that it's authenticated. Then if it's authenticated, there will be an encryption, and data, it should be encrypted to move into the server. This is a very important note, and usually you will find a question about this point. We call it storage communication. Sometimes we call it iSCSI, sometimes we call it SAN, sometimes we will call it iSCSI, SAN, storage communication. Storage communication, iSCSI, SAN, any one of them. We need external security measures or controls as authentication, Kerberos or CHAB or whatever, and IPsec. Fine. Now we will discuss the access control for local and remote access. I want to have remote access for my resources, and I want to have local access. If I am cloud service provider, then I am sitting in the data center, I will have a local access. I will connect to the server, I will connect to the machine or whatever. If I am sitting outside, then I want to have the access as a local. Then you have a local and remote access. Okay, that's fine. What are the security measures which we can take it? In data centers, I can have both the access methods. I can have direct local. I am sitting in the data center and I can have an access, or I can maybe sitting in my home and I want to access it remotely. In the cloud, customers are not able to gain local. They usually gain the remote access through the administration portal, which is considered as one of the APIs, which we discussed before. If I want to have a remote access to the physical infrastructure or logical, it must be very restricted. And it is reserved only for administrators, only. Don't allow to anyone else, especially for the physical server. And please don't be confused. When we say the physical server or physical infrastructure, who will have access for this physical infrastructure? Cloud service provider or cloud service customer, or both of them?
It depends on the cloud type, whether it's public cloud or private, but usually it will be the cloud service provider. Unless we have a private cloud, it will be the cloud service customer.
What do you mean by private cloud?
I mean a private cloud that it will be built for the customer. He will have access to his own private cloud.
Okay. This I don't mean here a private cloud, because here I mean the host. I mentioned the host. Forget about private. It's not private. Who will have the access?
It will be the cloud service provider for physical infrastructure.
That's right. Because the cloud customer, he will have access for VMs. unless if he rent a physical server, this it will be a different issue. Okay, and in this case, again, he will not be able to access it as well. Because how he will access the physical server, he will not be able. Then we have to provide the physical infrastructure control to the cloud service providers under secure controls. It must be restricted, and it must be give the virtual machine access to the developers, for the customers, users, and so on. Then we have different issues here. We have two different scenarios, if it's logic or if it's physical. If it's physical, usually it will be the cloud service provider. If it's virtual, then it will be for the customer. Let's say the customer, because I don't want to mention someone, it will confuse you. It will be for the customer. Okay, we have to make sure that you are using encryption method for remote access. Don't never, ever allow remote access in clear text. It must be encrypted. This encrypted, it can be IPsec, for example, or TLS, SSL, whatever. It's up to you. But it must be encrypted. Because if it's not encrypted and it's captured, congratulations. If it's captured, anyone, he can read it. He read the traffic. He can read IP addresses. He can read configuration. He can read whatever you have. Yani, this it act as you logged into your device and print the configuration and give it to him as a file, to the hacker as a file, a configuration file. Okay? When these are the conditions for the remote access, for the physical, for the VMs, it must be secure, it must be encrypted. And one additional factors from my experience, which you can find it in the exam, usually with the administration use 2FA or MFA, whatever. With privileged access or administrator access, use 2FA or MFA. Okay, we have another important component in the data centers. This component,
Sir, the way I understand, MFA and 2FA are one and the same, right? Two-factor authentication and multi-factor authentication.
two-factor authentication, we are using two factors. Multi, it can use
more than two.
More than two.
Okay.
Usually, no one uses it more than two. Frankly speaking, I am working in security since 20 years. I did not see anyone using three. But in some books, we call it MFA. We call it MFA. When just to know the difference between both of them. But frankly speaking, I did not see any location, even in Ministry of Defense, we are using 2FA. Okay. What is secure KVM? Do you know what is KVM?
Yeah, it is, I think, keyboard, mouse, and some, I think keyboard, virtual mouse, or I don't remember the V. It is, I think, keyboard,
video.
mouse. Sorry?
Keyboard, video, mouse.
Video mouse, yes.
What is KVM? KVM, it is very simple, gentlemen. Usually, you know that you will find a rack like that. And here you will find server 1. Server 2. Then you will find one space here. You will have a KVM. Then server 3. Server 4. Server 5. Server 6. Server 7. You want to manage these devices in the data center. Physical connection to in the data center. This, you are a cloud service provider. You have an access to physical host. This means that I need the keyboard. I need screen, or let's say monitor. I need mouse. You have here one switch like that. on the KVM, you have one switch. It has 8 ports. And this port is connected like that. Each server connects to one of the ports. Then, if you want to manage server number 1, press button number 1. Then the keyboard and the mouse and the monitor, it will be virtually as it's connected to this server. Then it's virtually as the keyboard and mouse of the server. If you need server 2, press button number 2. Then it will give you monitor number 2, and so on. This is the method because it is non-logic to have a keyboard, mouse, and video for all of them. Not because of the cost, but mainly for the location, where to install it. But in this scenario, look at single space, small space. You can monitor all the servers. It depends upon the number of ports which you have on the switch. Okay. This KVM, it must be physically protected from any compromise, the firmware, because we mentioned that every device as a hardware, it does not mean anything. It will not be able to work unless it is using its firmware, which is a small piece of software, which it is monitor and manage its operation. Then if there is anyone who was able to get an access and connect his PC into the console cable and he changed the firmware, it seems for you that it's working, but it may be in the background doing something else, trying to send the data to a hacker or whatever. Then you have to protect it very carefully. You have to lock the cabinet from back and front. You have to make it by a password or username and so on. Okay, this point number 1. Also, there are some KVMs, which the sophisticated KVM, which we call it secure KVM. If it's it's compromised, it will send an alarm and a notification. It can send an alarm and notification. If, for example, the door it's opened. If the door is opened, the door, I mean the door of the cabinet or door or the KVM itself, yani there is any hacking on the switch, it can send some notification that take care there is one problem. Then this user, he will be able to, I mean the administrator, he will understand it and check what's going on. It is very important, gentlemen, to keep in your mind that this device must you must disable whatever any USB devices or whatever on it. We have some models which have USB, then you can transfer fixed patch or USB. You must disable all these ports and take care. It is very important to make sure that you are not, or this device is not able to transfer any data between the hosts. It is not able to transfer any data between the hosts. This is very important, because if it will be able to transfer data, it can consider it as a risk. Then this means that the USB, it is disabled. If it has any USB ports, it should be disabled. And there is no data, it should be reside. There is no some sort of RAM, memory, even if it's PROM or EPROM or whatever, all this, it should be disabled and it should not be allowed. Okay? This, the KVM, which we call it secure KVM. Of course, the secure KVM for sophisticated data centers, it's expensive. It's not cheap, it's expensive. When we are speaking about remote administration and local administration, we spoke about the secure KVM, we spoke about the console port and how you can connect it, and you have to access control physically or physically and logically, and it should be secure and all this stuff. Then it makes sense to ask what are the secure protocols or what are the protocols which we are speaking about. One of these protocols, it's remote desktop protocol. Unfortunately, this it's not updated in RDB. It's not updated in CCSP. This protocol, gentlemen, it's not secure. There are a lot of problems discovered. You know what is the RDB? This you are able to access your screen of the server remotely. When it is you are sitting in any location, even remotely, and by using this protocol, it will open the screen of the server in front of you, and it seems that you are connected physically to the host. Unfortunately, this protocol it's not secure. This RDB protocol don't allow it to be accessed over the internet because it is not secure. It's an insecure protocol. And it has a lot of vulnerabilities, and this it's not allowed anymore now. All the big organizations, they stopped this protocol from the operation. Type what we can do, very simple. If you want to still utilize the remote desktop, use VPN. Use a VPN, IPsec or whatever. Because if you will use IPsec, then this means that it is secure. No one he will be able to capture data or whatever when it is secure. Then whatever any traffic in this VPN through the VPN, it will not make any difference. It's already secured, and no one he will be able to read it, or even he will know to capture it or play around with it to discover what you are doing. Okay. We have another protocol for remote management as well, gentlemen. You know the telnet? What is the secure protocol which is equivalent to the telnet?
SSH?
You are right, SSH. You are right. Then if you want to use the CLI, and instead of using telnet, no, it is not allowed. It is clear text. Utilize the SSH because this is secure. It is secure. Don't use any non-secure protocol. Don't use telnet. Don't use rlogin. Don't use rexit. Whatever any R command, these are available in Unix, by the way. Don't use FTP. Don't use TFTP. You are not allowed to use these things at all, especially if you are working remotely, because remotely means that you are over the internet. You are over the internet. Then internet, it is considered a big risk for the users. Okay. We have another concept which called jump box. You remember we explained this in form of jump server. You remember, gentlemen, when we said jump server, this jump server, it will be a device where this device, it is protected, it is secured, it has all the security countermeasures, it is hardened operating system. We removed all the non-necessary services, we removed all the non-necessary protocols, we removed anything which we don't need it. It has malware detection, it has host firewall, it has everything. Then this means that when someone he login through this box, it is a secured and hardening system, which it will allow secure communication for your network zones. It can use IPsec, it can use DLS, and so on, whatever. Then this, it will be act as the gateway for the management. If you want to access whatever any servers inside your network, you have to come to this server. You have the public IP address of this server, jump box. You will be connected here, and this jump box, it is allowed only to communicate with these servers and return the back traffic for you. Okay.
Sir, I just forgot the concept of jump box. So is it also like something on only used on only on emergency purposes to
Not
book
emergency. I'm not saying emergency. I am saying remote access or
Okay.
administration. You
Okay.
are not allowed to contact or connect to the server direct. You are allowed to connect through the jump box or the jump server. Jump box and jump server, they are the same, but jump box, it may be an appliance. You buy it as appliance, but jump server, it will be a software you install it on a server. It's exactly the same, nothing less, nothing more. Both of them are the same. But in the jump server, you have to get the server, install the software, Windows, remove the services, remove the protocols, do X, do Y, do Z. When all these steps, if you will do all these steps together, if you missed something by subhanallah by nature, this you will be in a trouble. But jump box, we are doing all these exercises to you in a proper way, and we are selling a box for you. Okay. There is another concept, gentlemen, which is called virtual client. What is virtual client? Virtual client, you are connected to the cloud service provider through a web browser. Let's say www.cloudserviceprovider.com, HTTPS, of course. Okay, you are connected through HTTPS. It will open a screen. It has a lot of things. I don't care about it, but I have administration option here. When you will press this option, when you will press by the mouse this option, administration, for example, it open another screen, which is a remote access screen. Then it act as a remote access screen, but it is secure screen. It is a virtual client. It act as a virtual client. Why virtual client? Because this machine, this screen, it act as a client for the administration. Then it can be a CLI, it can give you some options where you can choose from, it can provide you some servers configuration, whatever how you will do this, it will be the method. Then here, what it will do, this is the exercise. You will be able to handle all this information, where you will be able to make a configuration for your network and for your devices. Okay. Now we will speak about another secure network configuration. Now, gentlemen, we spoke about the hardware-specific components. We spoke about virtualization specific components. We spoke about the remote access and the local access. Now we will speak about the secure network configuration. How to configure your network securely. Of course, first concept, it is VLAN. What is VLAN? Any answer? What is VLAN?
It is a virtual local area network.
No, I need the abbreviation. What does it mean?
What it means is basically you are trying to create you are connecting a few virtual machines in a network virtually.
Maybe not virtually, but this VLANs, usually it is configured as a segregation method. I can say that financial is one VLAN, IT another VLAN, supply chain another VLAN. Then you will have these devices for financial, it is in one VLAN. And I have these devices for IT, this for financial, and another one for SC, and so on. When all the machines which we are common, maybe common by functionality, common by division, common whatever, they will be in a single zone. It will be in a single zone. Why? For many reasons. Number one, it will be fast in communication. Number two, it will be isolated. This VLAN, it will not be able to communicate with this VLAN except through a router. Except through a router, because VLAN, it's a layer 2. If you want to communicate between two layer 2 VLANs, you need layer 3 device. Then this, it will be some sort of segregation. It will be, we are using usually VLANs if we want to make a protection. One of the examples, I have a network in the data center and I have a firewall here.
Sir, one question. So these two VLANs you said.
Let me finish the example first. The firewall here and this data center firewall. We have in the data center 3 zones. One is called restricted zone. One is called critical zone. And another one called public zones. And these are hosting the servers and applications of the network. This, it has, let's say, 10 servers. This, it has 5 servers. And this has 20 servers. These servers, we can communicate together without any problem. All the servers in one zone, we can communicate without any problems. Each one of them, it can communicate with the other without any problems. But when we will come to the point where we want to communicate with other zone, it should go through what we said, the layer 3, which is the firewall. And the firewall, it's connected like that. Then if I want to communicate from restricted zone into critical zone, it will go to the firewall. The firewall, it has a rule. Is it allowed or not? This traffic, is it allowed or not? If it's allowed, then it will pass it to this VLAN. If it's not allowed, then it will drop it. Okay? What's the question, Ben?
No, my question was actually when you were explaining in the previous slide that 2 VLANs will be connected through a router. This router will also be a virtual router or will it be a physical router?
Whatever. I don't care. It can be virtual, it can be because by the end of the day, as a network rules, it will not make any difference.
Okay.
Okay. Then what are the benefits of the VLAN? This is very important. What are the benefits of the VLAN? This is very important. You will find it as sometimes question. Number one, we mention as segregation of the segregation of the customers. Because now, gentlemen, the situation in the cloud service provider, I'm saying that we have multiple tenants. How I will separate between them? How I will separate between the tenants in the cloud service infrastructure? It will be through the VLANs. I have one VLAN for customer 1, another VLAN for customer 2, another VLAN for customer 3, and so on. VLANs, it will not be able to communicate together except through the firewalls or layer 3. And of course, I will not allow this at all to happen, except if you have multiple VLANs owned by the same customer, then I can allow it through the router or through the firewall, whatever. But one of them, the features of the VLAN segregations for the cloud customers or different zones, create different zones. What do you mean by create different zones? You know that, for example, you have DMZ, you have internal in the, as we mentioned here I have a restricted zone, critical zone, public zone, and so on. These are the features required and important for the cloud service customer for using the VLANs. This is very important. Segregation customers create different zones. We mentioned TLS and SSL, and we by the way, TLS and SSL, gentlemen, SSL it's not used anymore, and this it was developed by Netscape, and it is not used because it is unsecure, and now it is replaced by TLS. TLS it's a version 2 right now, and it depends upon the X05, X509 certificates. This it is used using X5.509 certificate, and it can be used in a lot of things. It can be used for web traffic, it can be used for email, it can be used for voice over IP and so on. But we have two protocols under the TLS, which I want you to know about them. This can be a question in the exam. In the TLS, we have two different protocols. One, it's called TLS handshake protocol, and TLS record protocol. The handshake protocol, it is responsible for negotiate and establish secure connection between two entities. This is the functionality, handshake. Here, handshake. What do you mean by handshake? Let me give you an example, gentlemen. Suppose that I want to speak to someone, and I don't know what is his language. I'm not sure about his language and all this stuff. Then, what usually we are doing? You have to say hello. كيف حالك? Do you speak English? Then you will try to say it in multiple languages. You are trying to say to multiple language. What you are doing? You are proposing him different ways for communication. Then he have to pick one of them. He have to pick one of them. Yes, wait. I understand English. Then when you will tell you, hey, how are you? Fine, fine. Do you speak English? Yes, I'm speaking English. Great. Or لو أنا بتكلم عربي. عربي الأخ عربي كيف حالك? And you will start to speak in his language. This is what the concept of the handshake. In the handshake, you have multiple configurations. This configuration, it can be represented in how to make authentication, how to make encryption, how to make so and so. There are different methods. Then you will make proposals as an options, and when you will initiate a connection with a device, another device, it will give it all the proposals which it have it. Then it will pick one of them and it will initiate the connection between both of them. Excellent. Now we have a secure connection up and running. Then I have two hosts and I have a secure connection. Do I have traffic? No, not yet. First, I initiate the connection, create the tunnel, encrypted tunnel, that's it. I did not. After I make sure that the tunnel is up and running, I will start, or the DLS start to encrypt the data and send it through this tunnel. This is the function of the record protocol. This is the function of the record protocol. You have to understand these definitions. You have to understand these definitions. It can be, again, question in the exam. Okay? Did you hear about dynamic host configuration protocol? Did you hear about this protocol and what it's doing?
DHCP.
Yes, DHCP. All of us know DHCP. All of us know it, but dynamic host configuration protocol. In the exam, sometimes he will not mention DHCP. He will not mention DHCP. Type. What is the function of DHCP, gentlemen? What is the function of DHCP?
It's a TCP/IP configuration protocol.
Then what are the information which it will provide to any TCP IP host?
It will provide IP address, subnet mask, gateway, DNS.
Yes, all this information, and this information are very critical. What will happen if this device is penetrated?
What do you mean? The device which is
DHCP.
DHCP server, for example?
Yes. It's hacked.
I think you'll get privy to all the IP addresses.
This means that whatever all the information which assigned to, if there is any hacker who was able to log into HCP and he changed, for example, default gateway, this it will be a crisis, because this means that he may send the traffic to his network or his host. If he change the DNS, he may change the IP address of the DNS, and in this way, this means that he can forward you to any other site rather than the one which you want to communicate with. Then if he changed the IP address, it may be a spoofed IP address and so on. Then the DHCP component, it is very important and it must be secured, properly secured. It should be properly secured for the network. Okay. Of course, DHCP, it is a complex issue, but this information, it will be enough for the CCSP exam. But if you need more information, you can log into internet and check what are the components, how to protect DHCP, what are the products which you can protect it. But of course, this it's not not mentioned in the exams. It's not. It will not ask such these sophisticated questions. يعني, frankly speaking, I did not see it, but again, I cannot guarantee it, because ISC Square, we are usually changing their exams every year or 2 years. Yeah. But usually, you will not have such these questions. Okay. I think we have another topic, but this topic, it will take a long time, because it will speak about DNS security, and this it will take some time. I prefer to postpone it till next session. We are in a good shape and we are in a good pace. Then we can stop here. Any questions?
Actually, sir, this is my weakest domain because I haven't worked in a data center or in infrastructure much. I will have to probably spend much more time on this one. But I mean to say, in my last attempt, I got an above proficiency in this domain.
Again, as I told you, if you will follow the methodology, if you will understand the questions which you have it between your hands, then it will not make a big difference. As I told you, I had some of my trainees in the last session or session before, I am not sure, they were students in college, and they passed it, and passed more than 90%.
Okay.
We pass it more than 90%. Then, frankly speaking, yes, if you are having experience, it will be very easy, and life, it will be very easy. But it does not mean that you will not be able to pass. No, I don't believe this. I don't believe, and this from my practical experience.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Any questions?